The alien fleet hovered just outside Earth's orbit, an imposing armada of dark, angular ships that cut through the emptiness of space like predators eyeing their prey. General Xalrathi leaned forward in his command chair, staring at the holographic display that projected the planet before him. His sharp, insectoid features twisted in disdain as he analyzed the data. Primitive, he muttered, more to himself than to anyone around him. No shields, no advanced technology. They haven't even mastered interstellar travel. This will be over before the week is out. His fleet of Xalrathi warships, each the size of a small moon, waited patiently for the signal. Xalrathi had led countless successful invasions across the galaxy, each one as easy as the last. The species he encountered were predictable, their weaknesses laid bare before his superior intellect and firepower. Earth, with its underdeveloped military and fragile, vulnerable population, was no different. Earth's communications systems were archaic, easily intercepted, and their military satellites were nothing more than antiquated relics of a bygone age. Xalrathi scoffed at the notion that Earth could pose any significant threat. He had no doubt that the invasion would be swift and painless. "Begin the descent," Xalrathi ordered, his voice cold and final. Captain Elijah Carter stood at the command center of Earth's Defense Force, his hands folded behind his back as he surveyed the rapidly rising data on the holographic screen. The alien fleet had appeared just hours ago, and within minutes, Earth's defense systems had detected them. It was all happening too quickly. Too much, too soon. His mind raced. Earth wasn't ready for this. Sure, they had a few defensive satellites, an outdated missile system, and ground forces that were brave but outmatched. But facing an entire fleet of technologically superior aliens? It was a nightmare. Carter's gut twisted with unease, but he kept his composure. Panic would accomplish nothing. He turned to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Julia Romero, who stood by his side. She was calm, but there was a tremor in her eyes, a look of someone who was seeing the beginning of the end. "We need a plan, Captain," she said softly. Carter nodded, eyes never leaving the screen. He had no illusions about Earth's military capabilities. Their weapons were decades behind the Xalrathis, their strategies too conventional. It was almost laughable. Almost. "Their fleet's too large, too powerful," Carter said, his voice steady despite the unease creeping into his thoughts. "We can't fight them directly. We'll be wiped out in minutes. But we don't need to win the war, we just need to make them understand one thing." "What's that?" Romero asked, her gaze fixed on him. "That Earth isn't what they think it is," Carter said, a spark of determination lighting his eyes. "We're not just defenseless. We have something they don't expect. Something they can't measure." General Xalrathi stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Xalrathi Blade, a gleaming black vessel that radiated an aura of invincibility. His eyes scanned the planet's surface on the holographic display. The human forces had deployed their outdated missile defense systems, but it was a futile gesture. They were already intercepted by his ship's advanced countermeasures. "Prepare to engage," Xalrathi ordered. "Crush their resistance. Ensure that no trace of their civilization remains." The Xalrathi fleet began its descent, moving in perfect formation. Xalrathi's mind was already calculating the most efficient routes for planetary invasion, cities to be obliterated, military bases to be razed. It was nothing personal. It was simply the way of the galaxy. Weaker species were subjugated, their resources claimed for the greater good of the Xalrathi dominion. Earth was just another conquest. "General, the enemy is still engaging," a subordinate reported. "They've launched another round of missiles." Xalrathi flicked a mandible in irritation. Pathetic. As the Xalrathi warships descended into Earth's atmosphere, he had no doubt the final bombardment would wipe out any remaining human resistance. The planet would fall in mere hours. Carter was pacing now, his mind working in overdrive. Time was running out, and he needed a plan, something audacious. He walked over to the tactical map, his fingers skimming the touch interface. "Lieutenant Romero," he said, his voice sharp. "Activate the Earth Defense Protocol. We're going off book." Romero blinked, her face showing her confusion. Sir, that's never been tested. It's experimental. Exactly, Carter replied, a glint of resolve in his eyes. We need to surprise them. They're expecting us to fight with conventional methods, with the same old weapons they've faced before. But that's not what we're going to do. We're going to make them think twice about Earth's defenselessness. Romero hesitated, but then nodded. Aye, Captain. I'll get the team started. As Earth's atmosphere burned beneath the alien ships, Carter's team worked frantically to deploy their final, hidden defense, an ancient, dormant weapon buried deep beneath the Earth's surface. It was humanity's last gamble, a massive electromagnetic pulse, EMP, that could temporarily disable the alien ship's advanced technology. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. 5 minutes to deployment, Romero called out, voice tight with urgency. Carter stood by her side, watching as the countdown timer ticked closer. The tension was palpable. If this didn't work, Earth was done for. But Carter wasn't ready to give up just yet. He had no illusions about the battle, but he had one thing the aliens didn't, the ability to fight when everything seemed lost. To do what others thought was impossible. Activated, Carter said, his voice firm. General Xalrathi was watching from his flagship when it happened. The first shockwave hit. It was a pulse, a wave of energy that coursed through the Xalrathi fleet like a physical blow. Shields flickered, communication systems went down, and entire sections of the alien ships were thrown into chaos. What is this? Xalrathi growled, his mandibles clicking in disbelief. The pulse had short-circuited their systems, leaving the fleet temporarily paralyzed. The humans had done something unexpected. Something clever. For the first time, Xalrathi felt a pang of uncertainty. This will not stand, he hissed, turning to his officers. Prepare for manual control. Re-establish dominance. This battle is not over. But deep within the human command center, Captain Carter's lips curled into a small smile. They had just made the first move in a game the aliens never thought they'd play. Earth might be defenseless, but not for long. The Xalrathi fleet was stunned. General Xalrathi had expected Earth's feeble defenses to crumble under the weight of his superior forces. Instead, an electromagnetic pulse, something that should have been impossible, according to his calculations, had struck, disabling key systems on his warships. For a moment, all was chaos. The hum of the advanced engines faltered, communication lines went silent, and the vast fleet wavered, like a beast stunned by an unexpected blow. Xalrathi's sharp mandibles clicked with frustration. His fleet was a marvel of technological supremacy, and yet, a simple pulse from Earth had thrown everything into disarray. He slammed a fist onto his command chair's armrest. Report, he barked. His communications officer hesitated, the alien's face flickering with apprehension. General, the EMP has short-circuited most of our external systems. Shields are fluctuating, and we've lost contact with the lead ships. We're temporarily grounded in Earth's atmosphere. Xalrathi's eyes narrowed. A moment of doubt flashed in his mind, but it passed quickly. No human weapon, no matter how primitive, could ever defeat the Xalrathi fleet. Patch through all systems manually. Activate secondary power cells. This will be over shortly. Meanwhile, Captain Carter stood in the heart of the Earth Defense Force Command Center, surrounded by a small team of technicians working furiously at their consoles. The pulse had worked, but the aliens were not defeated, not yet. The tide had shifted in their favor, but only just. The alien fleet was too large, too powerful. This battle would not be won with a single strike. Romero paced beside Carter, her fingers tapping against her tablet screen, scanning the data. They're regaining control, sir. The pulse is wearing off faster than we anticipated. Carter's eyes were locked on the display. He could see the alien ships slowly coming back online, their engines humming back to life. We knew this wasn't a one-time fix. We've delayed them, but it's not enough. We need to keep them distracted, give Earth's defenses more time. Romero swallowed, concern evident in her eyes. How do you propose we do that? Their fleet is still at least 20 times more powerful than ours. Carter paused, his hand hovering over the console. He'd been prepared for this, but no amount of training could fully prepare him for the reality of facing an overwhelming force. We don't fight them head-on, he said quietly. We fight them on our terms. High above, the alien ships began to stabilize. Zerkal gritted his teeth, his patience wearing thin. He had been caught off guard, but he was not one to let a minor setback deter him. His fleet was still intact. Earth was still defenseless. He would see to it personally that the humans understood their place in the galaxy. General, we've regained contact with the lead ships, his officer reported. We're ready to commence the invasion. The ground forces are preparing to deploy. Zerkal's mandibles curved into a predatory grin. Excellent. Begin the planetary strike. Focus on their major cities, leave no survivors. He turned, giving the order to his fleet, unaware that Captain Carter's team was already preparing their next move. Back on Earth, Carter and his team were working against the clock. Romero had pulled up the defense grid, displaying several key cities marked for destruction. They're targeting our capital cities, military bases, and industrial hubs, she said, pointing to the display. If we don't stop them soon, Earth will fall. Carter's mind raced as he scanned the map. The Xalrathi were brutal in their efficiency, surgical strikes to cripple Earth's infrastructure. But they underestimated something fundamental, Earth's adaptability. Humanity had always found a way to survive, to evolve in the face of impossible odds. Time to get creative, Carter muttered, stepping toward the central control station. Romero turned to him, eyebrow raised. Creative how? I have an idea, Carter said, a flicker of determination in his eyes. Something they won't expect. As Zerkal's fleet began its descent to Earth's surface, Carter and his team executed their plan. It wasn't much, certainly not enough to defeat the aliens, but it would serve as a distraction, a window of opportunity. While Earth's primary defense grid was focused on containing the alien fleet, Carter's forces had launched a series of false signals. They sent decoy signals to Earth's satellites and military radar stations, tricking the aliens into thinking there were multiple resistance pockets scattered across the globe. It was a gamble. The aliens had the technology to detect falsified signals, but Carter counted on the one thing that the Xalrathi couldn't replicate, human unpredictability. We've bought ourselves a few hours, Carter said as he watched the decoy signals blink into existence. Now we need to use them. Romero nodded, her eyes brightening. You think we can hold them off? Carter smiled grimly. We're going to make them regret ever thinking we were easy prey. Zerkal, meanwhile, watched Earth's defenses falter before his eyes. The ground assault had begun. His forces began their systematic annihilation of major cities, beginning with New York and Moscow. The alien war machines tore through the buildings, reducing humanity's greatest cities to rubble. But what Zerkal failed to anticipate was the pattern of resistance. Though Earth's defenses were not formidable on their own, they were scattered across the globe, coordinated in ways that the Xalrathi didn't expect. Small teams of humans used guerrilla tactics, ambushing alien ground units, sabotaging equipment, and throwing Zerkal's forces off balance. Where are they getting these tactics from? Zerkal demanded, his eyes narrowing. These humans have no organized military. They must be coordinating, one of his officers responded. They're using guerrilla warfare, disrupting our supply lines and forcing us into drawn-out engagements. Zerkal hissed, pacing across the bridge. He had underestimated them. The humans weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting with purpose, with determination. They were using their disadvantage to their advantage. In the heart of Earth's command center, Carter stood with Romero, watching the alien fleet descend further. The decoy signals were working, just as he had hoped. He could see the alien forces scrambling, their movements erratic as they tried to adapt to the unexpected resistance. Keep it up, Carter said, his voice low. We've delayed them, but this is just the beginning. Romero gave him a sharp nod. We're not backing down. the war was far from over. Earth's survival depended on keeping the aliens off balance for as long as possible. And for the first time in history, Earth's defenders were fighting not just for survival, but for something greater, the chance to prove that even the most underestimated species in the galaxy could be a force to be reckoned with. The sun had long set, casting Earth's cities into shadows, but the night had not brought peace. The alien fleet hovered above, its massive ships blocking out the stars, casting a chilling pallor over the planet. Xalrathi's forces were relentless, tearing through the Earth's defenses, their weapons ravaging what remained of the major cities. And yet, amid the chaos, the humans held their ground. Captain Carter stood in the heart of the command center, staring at the digital map that now filled the air around him. He could feel the weight of the world pressing down on him. Earth was being torn apart, and yet, something had shifted. The invaders, once confident in their overwhelming superiority, were beginning to show signs of uncertainty. "Sir," Romero's voice broke through the tension. "The resistance teams in the Pacific have reported success. They've disabled 2 of the alien supply ships. We've got them on the back foot." Carter's lips curled into a small, determined smile. "That's exactly what we need. Keep it up." He turned, his eyes scanning the room. "If we can disrupt their supply lines, we might just create the opening we need." But there was no time to rest. The Xalrathi fleet had begun deploying its ground forces in full. Massive dropships descended from the sky, disgorging an army of alien soldiers clad in heavy exoskeletons, their eyes glowing with the anticipation of slaughter. It wasn't enough that they had decimated cities, now they were coming for Earth's heart. "Captain, we've identified several landing zones," Lieutenant Romero said, her voice steady despite the growing threat. "They're coming in faster than we anticipated." Carter's eyes never left the holographic map. He had been trained for moments like this, moments where defeat seemed inevitable. But humanity had something the Xalrathi had not accounted for, their ability to adapt, to fight in ways their enemies couldn't predict. "We'll use the terrain," Carter said, his voice low. "I know the Xalrathi think they've already won. But they don't know Earth. They don't know how we fight." Xalrathi stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the reports pour in. The invasion had been progressing according to plan. Cities had fallen. Resistance had been shattered. Yet, something gnawed at him. The humans were not as easy to crush as he had expected. His forces, despite their overwhelming power, had been held at bay in several regions by small, guerrilla-style groups. "General," his officer said, his voice tense. "We've encountered unexpected resistance near the outskirts of Chicago. They're using the city's ruins to ambush our troops. They're relentless." Xalrathi clenched his fists. "Relentless, yes. But they are not soldiers. They will break. I will make sure of it." He turned toward his officer. "Deploy more forces. Bring in the shock troops. Let's show them the full might of the Xalrathi Dominion." In the ruins of New York, Carter's team was already preparing for the next wave. The decoy signals had worked, but the clock was ticking. Xalrathi was no fool. He knew that Earth's defenders were a resourceful lot, but in the face of an unstoppable army, humanity's hope was growing thin. Carter knew they couldn't win this war through sheer force. The alien technology was far too advanced. But there was one thing they had left: ingenuity. The resistance had set up traps in every alley, in every crumbling building. The Xalrathi might have superior firepower, but humans knew how to fight in the shadows. They knew how to make a stand where it seemed impossible. Carter had a plan that depended on using the very chaos of the invasion to their advantage. Romero looked at him, her brow furrowed. "You're sure about this?" "It's a long shot." Carter met her gaze. "We don't have any other choice." Xalrathi's troops marched through the city streets, their boots clanging against the rubble. The shock troops were a fearsome sight, towering and armored, their weapons capable of cutting through anything in their path. But as they advanced deeper into New York, the atmosphere shifted. It was too quiet. "Keep your eyes open," one of the soldiers warned, his voice gravelly with tension. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook. Explosions erupted from the buildings around them. Alien soldiers were sent flying as traps triggered, hidden explosives blinding their sensors. Carter's forces had lured them into a deadly dance. The humans had set the stage, using their knowledge of the city's layout to outmaneuver their foes. Xalrathi watched in fury as his forces struggled to regain control. The humans had set the traps, and now the battle had shifted. Earth's defenders were using the urban jungle to fight back, taking down alien soldiers one by one. For the first time, Xalrathi could see the challenge before him. "General, we need reinforcements," his officer reported. "We've taken heavy casualties." Xalrathi's eyes burned with anger. "Bring in the airstrikes. Show them that their petty tricks won't save them. Bring the city to the ground if you must." Carter and his team moved through the city with purpose, navigating the wreckage with precision. He had expected this. Xalrathi would use airstrikes to level the city, to wipe out the humans once and for all. But Carter had already prepared for this contingency. "Ready the countermeasures," he ordered. "We don't have much time." Romero gave him a questioning look. "Countermeasures?" Carter gave a tight nod. "We're not letting them take this city without a fight." As Xalrathi's forces called in the airstrikes, the sky above New York darkened with the shadows of descending bombers. The Xalrathi didn't care about collateral damage, everything was expendable. But they had underestimated the humans once again. Carter activated the signal. In a flash, the EMP pulse hit once more, crippling the alien bombers as they descended. Their weapons went dead, and the ships fell from the sky like stones, crashing into the streets below. The Xalrathi had not expected this. The humans were not just holding their ground, they were making them fight for every inch. Xalrathi watched in disbelief as his forces faltered once again. "This cannot be happening," he muttered. In the aftermath of the crash, Carter's forces rallied. The air was thick with smoke, but the humans were far from finished. They had faced impossible odds, but each victory, no matter how small, made them stronger. Romero stepped up beside Carter, a grim smile on her face. "We've got them on the ropes, sir. We can win this." Carter looked at the devastation around him. The road ahead would be long, but the Xalrathi had learned a valuable lesson: humanity, though outmatched, was not so easily defeated. "We're not done yet," Carter said quietly. "This is just the beginning." And so, the fight for Earth continued, not with overwhelming power, but with the strength of the human spirit. The invaders had underestimated them. But now, they would learn what it meant to face the unbreakable will of humanity.